listening to the How to Health podcast. Turn up that stereo, plug in those earbuds, or pull up a chair. It's time to master your health journey. Here are your hosts, Dr. Heidi Cook and athletic trainer Tyler Smith. Let's ride.
Howdy ho.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing fine.
Fine. We were talking beforehand, and Heidi had expressed that she has hit a new level of tired lately. So we're just trying to help her power through this today.
We are in full power through mode. Yes. It's like sleep is just a joke at this point, a funny joke. And like every night I crawl into bed and I'm like, what's tonight going to bring? How many times am I going to get up to pee? How long is it going to take me to fall back asleep? All those fun things. But yes, sleep is unique. Right now is the best way I can describe it. Yeah, I was telling Tyler, like, my Oura Ring sleep score is just like a funny joke. I know all of our listeners have heard my sleep sagas for decades at this point of like, not scrolling before bed and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like at this point, like nothing I do changes.
You're like, I'm not moving the dial.
I read before bed last night. We didn't eat a late dinner. Like I got my workout in yesterday. Like all of the things that I feel like, non-pregnant Heidi would like be like, ooh, yeah, I really set myself up for some good sleep today. The other piece is that like, so Sam gets up early, and gets ready and stuff. And like pre-pregnant Heidi could just kind of like ignore or like sleep through or if I woke up, like I would easily fall back asleep.
Sure.
And that's just not the case anymore. So like where I feel like I need those like morning hours to get some additional sleep, even if it's like 45 minutes or an hour or something like after he leaves, it doesn't happen. And so like today I was like trying to go back to sleep. And finally I was like, I have 20 minutes before I have to be up. And I just gave up and was just like, screw this.
I mean, the hardest part is those last, 30 minutes when you have to get up and like you just don't.
Yeah, it's like, what's the point of falling back asleep?
It doesn't, and you don't sleep well. And there's so many times I'm like, why didn't I just get up? Because I'm not sleeping anymore. Like, why am I just laying here? This makes no sense.
Yeah, that's how I felt this morning. But I think maybe I was talking to my doctor. I had my 32-week appointment on Monday this week. And I was, Sam had made an offhanded comment about like how I'm struggling to sleep these days. And she was like, it might behoove you to start like figuring out how to take a nap in the afternoon, knowing that you're not going to sleep well at night. Cause she's like, regardless, like your body needs the sleep to grow this human. And I was like, That's fair. But like, also, when am I going to do that? And then like, I have a much more flexible schedule than most. I'm struggling to figure out like, when would I just like lay down for a nap in the middle of the day? And then like people who work normal jobs, normal everyday 9-to-5 jobs, when are they taking a nap? They're not taking a freaking nap.
Not unless you're using your lunchtime as a short siesta, like 15-minute nap.
So anyways, that was just like funny. I just laughed. Like I had nothing to say in response to that. I just laughed. I was like, normal people aren't taking naps in the middle of the day. I have the privilege of figuring out how to schedule in an afternoon nap time. So maybe I won't waste my privilege and I'll just do it. But like, also, it feels strange to be like, 2 p.m., time to get under my blankie.
Yeah. Well, maybe you just kind of look at the day, and if there's a natural time of day where you feel like but that's hard too when you have meetings and stuff, but maybe at least after a couple of days, you can shift stuff around and try to match that.
Yeah. Maybe like, we coach people on like how to start small and how to encourage them to, start with one workout a week. Maybe the advice I need for myself is, Heidi, start with one nap a week and see what that looks
Just
like.
one nap once a week. See what it looks like.
Yeah. So I'll keep you guys posted if I take a nap this week on next week's episode.
I was gonna say I've never been. I feel like every time I nap, it messes up my sleep at night. So I tend to not nap unless unless it's one of those days where I'm just exhausted. Then I might try to sneak one in, but very rarely do I try to nap.
Yeah. I think at this, like, I feel the exact same, but at this point, like, my sleep is so screwed up anyways.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like, how much worse could it possibly get?
Oh, yeah, you have a
I
very
say that,
unique.
those might be my famous last words. Things might really go downhill here, guys.
And you have a very unique situation. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we'll see. Before I get too off topic, we are 32 weeks.
32 weeks.
Baby is the size of a Care Bear.
Nice. I had one of those growing up.
You did?
Yes.
Which one did you have?
Oh crap. The one with
two.
So I had, I'm outing people here. I had the one with the heart in the middle. He was like orange.
Yep.
He was one of the boy bears. And then my brother had the blue one with like the clouds on it. But I can't remember which ones they were. I feel like Heidi's looking this up right now.
I am looking it up. So the orange one with the heart was called Tenderheart Bear.
Tenderheart. I had Tenderheart.
There was also an orange one with a star on his belly.
I think I had Tenderheart. Okay. And then my brother had the one with the clouds. And I believe my sister.
The grumpy one?
Yeah.
Grumpy Bear? Because there's the cloud with the rain, and that's Grumpy Bear.
I think that was it.
But then there's also one that's like nighttime, and it has like a moon and stars.
I don't know which one. And I think my sister had a yellow one with a sun in the middle.
So I had the sunshine one.
Yeah.
What's this one called? Funshine Bear. So I had Funshine Bear, and then I also had the green one with like the 4-leaf clover.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
Good Luck Bear. So those are the bears that I had: the green one and the yellow one.
Yeah, little nostalgic trip there down Care Bear Lane.
Down Care Bear Lane. So yes, baby is the size of a Care Bear, but baby is also the size of this one always takes longer to load. Baby is the size of a, hold please.
Loading.
A Napa cabbage. Can you see that? Not really.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Cabbage.
Okay. Almost 17 inches long.
Yikes.
Yeah. And 4.3 pounds.
So at what point does the poundage and length become less like exciting because the child's growing, and for you less like, yeah, you can slow down because this is going to have to come out at some point, and I don't need you to be that big of like a small human.
I really only need him to, gain like another 2 pounds.
Okay.
If he was like 6.3 pounds, that would be great. I have my growth scan in a couple of weeks, so we're going to actually like get to know how big he actually is, not based on like all of these averages. Cause like everything I'm saying here is just like based on, where he's at like growth milestone wise and like average, 50th percentile type stuff. And at my first growth scan, like he was rocking right around the 50th percentile in pretty much everything. Yeah. So anyways, I'm very curious to see what he's measuring like at our next growth scan, and we'll have a better idea of how big he's looking. But yes, knowing that like we're not like a ways out. I mean, he could come, once we get past that like 36-week mark, he could pretty much come whenever. And 36, 37 weeks. Which is only, like 3-4 weeks away, which is terrifying. So that's crazy to think about, but like to know that he's already over 4 pounds is just like wild to think about.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. It seems like I mean, we've been checking in weekly. It just seems like it's gone by so fast. And I don't know if it felt like that to you, but
was literally just saying that to Sam last night. Like, I know I'm going to hit a wall here at the end where I'm just like, get this thing out of me. Like, I get that. I understand as much as I can, having not experienced it yet. But like, I know that that's coming.
Sure.
But at the same time, I still am like sitting in this zone of, I feel like it went by so freaking fast.
Yeah.
Like, so I've just heard so many ladies be like, oh my God, I feel like I've been pregnant forever and blah, blah, blah. And like, I get that. And I think a lot of that comes towards the end, but like, I don't feel that way. Like, yes, if I look back at like, we found, it does feel like we found out forever ago, like it was early fall that we found out that I was pregnant,
Yeah.
And so like that feels like ages ago, if I think back to that time, like, going up to the cabin and like, just all of that stuff feels like a really long time ago, but I don't feel like I've been like pregnant forever or anything like that. So I don't know. Ask me again in 3 weeks and I might be like, oh my God, I've been pregnant forever.
It all rapidly changes. Like, no, I don't like this anymore.
Yeah. I think I also too am just thankful, like pregnancy overall has been a very enjoyable experience for me. And I think that also has something to do with it, like it hasn't been without its challenges and just like the mental load of it all. But I think for those that have more medically complicated pregnancies or more challenging pregnancies or, dealing with more symptoms and things like that, like I can definitely see where if, you've been struggling for 9 months, where it would definitely feel like an eternity,
Yeah, for sure.
How was your week?
Okay. So we're just going to go through a little couple things here. It was a better week this week, but when we left, I can say this now because it was officially announced. Like, my team is went through a coaching change.
Yes.
So last week was filled with like a lot of just like raw emotions, a lot of like emotional heaviness because
Totally.
The athletes are going through some stuff. They've been recruited by this coach. That coach is no longer here. And then we're still trying to go compete. Which, by the way, I joke, but it wasn't a joke. My team was definitely the most popular team at the meet because of like the coaching change and then for lack of a better term, the gossip tree kind of going around. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I got a lot of like, how are you guys doing? Like with like a little shoulder tap, like. So this week has been better. It's one of those things where it gets messy afterward because you're down a couple of human beings. You're still trying to get through the season, have the athletes, like do what they're going to do, try to give them the best chance for success. But at the same time, those of us in coaching or support roles are trying to fill the gaps. So it just was, last week was just a lot of a lot of mental and physical toll. And so this week seems to be a little bit better, and hopefully we can kind of plan a little bit better, get it some more support and move forward. But there were a lot of opportunities last week to flex some neutral thinking and just try to, I mean, it's just hard sometimes, and I hope everyone can relate. It's like, it's so heavy that like it's hard to pull yourself out of that fog for a while. You're just like trudging through it, but it's better this week for sure. Having a 14 and a half hour day at a track meet didn't exactly assist in the process, but yeah, that's kind of just part of the job.
Yeah, I think like it's that shitty part of, sometimes like the only way through it is through it, and like, and when you're just like in the trenches of it all, you can feel very much like buried by it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm glad things are improving. I don't think it's something that will be an overnight, type thing, but
no, and I'm getting like a lot of questions about like just the job opening itself. Like I've worked with a lot of coaches, for better or worse. I've been in the track world for like a decade now. So I'm like a lot of people.
Seems wild to me,
Yeah. So I've been in it, and coaches and people know me, and people are like, how's it going? What's going on? And then I'm trying to stay, obviously, what happens. And that's our, nothing I need to share with other people, but just a lot of questions as far as what does it look like moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to be somebody who's like in the know without being the person that people go to then find out for themselves, like, I don't know if that's a good way of describing it, but like, it's hard to be in the know and know what you know without feeling like you can share what you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the problem is like, but it's not terrible, but yeah, you're right. You're like, I can't really talk about it. And most people are very respectful for that. But
yeah,
I got a lot of, and it is a good thing. A lot of people, former athletes, gave me a lot of credit, and they were like, it's really good that you were there, because I know that they leaned on you and they needed you in this time and stuff.
totally.
And I was like, you're absolutely right. The only caveat to that was I felt a little bit like sometimes like on an island where I was getting a lot of it. And it's like when you're sitting there and someone has this really heavy bag because they have all these emotions and stuff going through, or something happened, and they're like, hey, I need to give you this bag because I can't hold it anymore. So you grab it. And then the next person gives you a bag and a bag and a bag. And at some point you're like, hey guys, I can't hold it anymore. Like I can't carry anymore. So like, definitely trying to help them and assist them. And I have some great coworkers that, kind of helped me shoulder, but it's trying to push them like, hey, we need to go talk to this person. But we got through it. This week has so far been a lot better, and we're just trying to figure everything out.
Good. Well, I'm glad things are getting better. I'm glad things are improving, but yeah, hard times, hard transitions.
Yep.
But I also think, this was also kind of a culmination of a lot of, not drama's the wrong word, but like issues that you've been having to, deal with the side effects of off and on for how long, and now it's almost like come to, a point of finality in some sense.
Yeah, for sure.
That it's almost like, okay, now we can almost like move past it and through it without it like looming. Like that doesn't mean it's less hard or less challenging given the circumstances, but like almost like there's actually some ending to this kind of, situation that's been causing you to carry a lot of mental load for a long time.
Sure. Yeah. And like you said, just when these things happen, it doesn't necessarily make it easier. It's just going to bring about some resolve, hopefully on some point, or a new direction that you're going to get pointed in.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad things are moving in a new direction. And that you have support and all the good things, and Boise State track and field.
We'll see where it goes next.
See where it goes next.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
I have no good pivot off.
I had one, but it was on your end, and then we got to me. I was like, "You're talking about,
heavy stuff, and we're transitioning to how to get your kids to exercise."
Yeah. Well, it was like growing, baby coming soon. Speaking of kids, but like that when I got on, and I just killed all that. So I should have thrown more of a softball up there.
Well, we weren't going to skate by how your week went. Yeah. I liked this. So Tyler, if you guys don't know, I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but just like Tyler sends me kind of like a list of, 4 or 5 topics each week. And, certain ones will stay on there, and then we'll eventually get to them and cycle through, and he throws new ones on there, and, and then we kind of come to a decision of what we're going to talk about each week. But I saw this one on there, and I was just like, you know what? I like this topic, because not that I have no experience with this, but I have not been a parent yet. And I'm in this transitional season where I'm just like, not that people have been like overstepping giving advice. People are just like willing to give their parenting advice. And I'm willing to hear their parenting advice. It doesn't mean I'm always going to take it.
Sure. Yeah.
But like I've never felt like, oh, here we go again. Like I'm genuinely curious just to like learn about everybody's kind of different parenting styles. And a lot of times I'll hear something and I'll be like, yeah, that's really neat. Or like, yeah, that's really neat. But like, that's just not going to fit my personality. Or like how we're going to be able to do things. But like, that's neat that works for you guys,
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of in this season of soaking up all of this, parenting, not necessarily like advice, but just like different perspectives and things. And so when Tyler threw this one on there, I was like, I'd really love to hear his perspective on what that's looked like within his life and his family. But then also too, what that looks like or what he's heard from other parents. I think once you have become a parent, like I'm getting a small dose of this being pregnant, of
Sure.
like people sharing about parenthood and, all of these different things and strategies and what's worked for them and what hasn't worked for them. And, all of these things. I think once you're in parenthood, like that just even becomes more and more of like a talking point with your other parent friends and, things like that. And so I'm also curious to hear, what you've heard good and bad from other parents that you've been around. So the parenting advice or topic that we're tackling today being how to encourage your kids to be more active if you're noticing that they're maybe more sedentary. And I think that's also just something that is maybe newer to navigate than the childhood that many of like parents in our generation. So like, or parents becoming a parent, like people our age, right?
Yeah.
As we were kids, we didn't necessarily struggle so much with things or entertainment that kept us sedentary.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like now that is more of a challenge that parents are facing with just like the overall rise of technology. And we've seen a more sedentary lifestyle for kids. So yeah, kind of let's start there. And what have you seen as, I mean, even just over the how old is Q now?
12.
12. I almost said 11, and 12 was not even on my radar. Oh my gosh. I was like 10, 11. No, it's got to be 11. Nope, it's got to be 12. Wow. In like the 12 years that you've been a parent, even over that time, I'm sure things have shifted and changed. So kind of what are the trends that you're seeing in kids today?
Well, so reference point, I'm 43. And when I grew up, it was very much so like go outside, come home before the sun goes down type thing.
Yeah.
Like it was just, and the world has shifted to where I understand that that's not probably the best or most comfortable feeling for most parents to just kick them out and be gone. But technology has definitely created a barrier, and it's created like this interesting complex, because one of the biggest things I think when you're talking about getting your kids to be more active is you can force them to do stuff, but you're probably going to create a bad relationship with that activity in your child. If you're like, nope, I want you to go outside, and I can pick on this because it's my life, you're going to go run for 30 minutes. Well, if every time they go do that, and a lot of us have this, like you associate running with punishment, and you will probably never enjoy that activity the way you should.
Yeah.
So being open and creative, like you can't force it, but you can also, you almost have to now, much like we do, you kind of have to structure or build in some time where like, no, you can't be on your phone for this amount of time. No, you can't play video games. Like you need to go outside for a while, and you need to like set those parameters. So it's this weird dichotomy of you can't force a specific physical activity, but you have to be intentional and structure some like get outside time. Because, and I mean, I just can speak with what my son does. Like he can be at times like a very homebody person. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there are times his friends will come to the house and he's just like, I need a break from them. They're too much. Like, you know what I mean? And this might be also compounded or contributed to the fact that like he's like gone through puberty and matured much earlier than the other ones. So I think, and he's an only child. So like he is around adults all the time. So those kind of factors, sometimes I think being around a lot of kids can be very fatiguing for him.
Yeah.
Because they're crazy and yell and stuff. And like, that's not the atmosphere he grew up in. But those are the first things that I would kind of throw out is like, yes, technology has created a barrier, and you have to play with getting them outside, but not forcing a specific activity.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's say, we've got a kiddo that is, more of a homebody, maybe tends to gravitate more towards scrolling, technology, video games, maybe even not, maybe just they're a kid that like loves to have their nose in a book.
Sure.
Like technology aside, right? Like where do you go first to encourage movement without it feeling like, oh, dad's on my back about, blah, blah, blah. Like, I mean, I can think back to, not that I had a particularly sedentary childhood, right? Like, especially thinking about like sports involvement and just like the amount that I was doing on a day-to-day basis. I think back to that. I'm like, how did I do that? How did I have the energy to like wake up at 6, do, like I think about summers in high school. Yes, that's later on, but like, summers in high school was waking up at 6, going to conditioning, then going to practice, and then likely having some sort of evening like club practice as well. And it's just like, where did I find? And like sometimes in between the like morning practice and the evening practice, we'd like go to the pool and swim and like all of the stuff. And it's just like, where did I find
the energy to do that?
Energy to do all of those things. So like, but even in that, like I remember during specific off seasons or, different things. And like my dad would really be encouraging me encouraging / forcing me to like get out and go for a run. And it was for no other purpose other than like, you know, he's like, you're not going to sit here and waste away and like, you know, blow, you know, your cardiovascular fitness and expect to hit the field come season and like have it feel good. But like as a kid, you know, going for a run was like the worst thing you could have ever made me do. And I hated it so much and would roll my eyes and blah, blah, blah. And just like really didn't enjoy it. And so I think about that. And I don't think he necessarily approached it wrong. Like it wasn't like get off the couch and go for a run, you know, you're looking a little round. It wasn't like that. You know, it was very much like how do we tackle, you know, your cardiovascular fitness for your sports performance in these seasons of more rest. But like even then I didn't want to do it. So I think about stubborn me. And when I didn't have a purpose to be exercising like through sports, it was very much a challenge and I did very much dig my heels in. So I'm curious how then you approach that with your kids.
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think it provides a great opportunity in my mind. And I don't know how other people will feel about this, but one of the easiest things you can do during those things is provide like a shared experience or a family activity. You know what I mean? If like we're all sitting around and like you feel like your kids are getting lethargic, it's going to be easier to be like, get your stuff. We're going for a walk together as a family. Like we're all getting out of the house. Like one of my big things is if you're going to say those things, bring options to the table. Not that there's not a problem with like just being bored, but like I think eventually you're going to run into more resistance if you're like, hey, you need to go do something. And then you shut off everything and they're like, what am I supposed to do? And you're like, I don't know. And you walk away. Like that's where you get like, oh, like, or sorry, like this is just my personal opinion and you guys can all tell me you disagree. Like I also am not of the mindset or think sometimes it's kind of a little bullshit if you're like, hey, you need to go be physically active and they turn around and you're not being physically active yourself. Like you're creating a double standard. So like a lot of things for me is like, I'm going to go lift. I mean, and that's the other thing is just know like 10 times over, they're watching what you do and not listening to what you say. So if you are doing those type of things, if you're like, hey, we've been sitting around too much, like, let's just go out and like mom wants us to, or we need to like spruce up the lawn. So everyone grab a bag, let's go out together, like just being active and doing that stuff. But like, I'm a big believer in like, take the initiative and do it yourself so your kids can see you. And then there's just less resistance when they know you're out doing the same thing. It's hard for them to be like, well, why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you even I build a lot of points with my son when he'll be like, well, I'm going to go lift or I'll go, I'll shoot hoops with him. But like, he knows by being down in the garage, like his dad's still stronger than him. So like, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
he can say whatever he wants to say, but I'm in there putting in the work and he sees that every day. Like he knows that I'm still doing stuff. And so, and some of those facets, they're going to learn through watching you. And the more active, I'm not saying you have to go run marathons or anything, but like the more active you are, the more he sees that that's just part of a natural lifestyle. And then even if they have some resistance at the beginning, they'll start to pick that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a huge point that like, truthfully, when we started this conversation wasn't even on my radar, but might be one of the most important points that we bring up in this episode of just that concept of leading by example. That's one thing that as much as I hated, going for those off-season runs, like my dad was always going for a run with me,
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't like go for a run and figure it out. And like some summers, he was like, would know that he would come home from work and like ask, did you go for a run today? And that was when I was older, and it was like more my responsibility to, maintain my cardiovascular fitness for sports. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't taking care of himself in his own way, and when I was younger, it was always like, let's go for a run, and we'd go together. I don't know which one I hated more, honestly, because he would set the pace of the runs we would do together. But I think too, like what you said of just like, recognizing instead of like hey, you need to do this. Hey, do this. And like that expectation, I think, on kids of like, I'm ready for them to do this, but like they might not be in that mental space in that particular moment. And I think a lot of that resistance comes from like, I've been thinking about this thing. I've been thinking that they've been too sedentary. It's almost like with a partner, right? Like with a spouse, and you're like, you've been staring at this like load of dishes maybe in the sink all day, and then like they hadn't even noticed it yet, and like, or maybe they noticed it and they're like, okay, I'm gonna do this after blank, like after I complete X. And then like you get on them and start chirping at them about like the dishes in the sink, when in reality, like you didn't communicate that it was bothering you. They didn't communicate like that they had a plan, and like the expectation that it gets done now versus like 10 minutes from now, I think is also where some of that breakdown happens with kids, right? It's just like, I've been seeing that they've been sedentary. We need to get up off the couch right now. And it's like, well, okay, like what about in, 10 minutes when I finish my thing, and like, as I come to a good stopping point instead of always feeling like somebody's, pulling the rug out from under whatever I'm doing to do what they want me to do, I think can help give some autonomy. But then also that like giving options to encourage not only movement, but like their interests too. Like how can we incorporate movement around what it is that they're interested in learning or developing, or how can we introduce new things to them? Think about that a lot. Like my husband, grew up in and around a boxing gym because his dad was a, boxing coach. Speaking of which, shadow boxing, I have new things to send you.
That's good. Good. I'm excited.
Yes, I have new things to send you because what he said, not to totally derail, hold on, let me pull it up. Where'd it go? There we go. Because what he said he sent you were beginner examples.
Sure.
There are many other good workouts for diversity of time, skill, and complexity. And he wrote a whole paragraph and then sent you another link. So
nice.
Yes, you have more and more to work on. But all that being said, like that was something like I had never been introduced to that, at all. And so I think about that too, of just like in leading by example and like following your own interests. I think that could also like foster, your kids' interests as well, of, they kind of want to be doing and involved with what you're doing and what you're involved in. And I think can set like a really cool foundation for them in the future. And so all that to say, it's a very long-winded way of saying like it starts with you,
Right. Well, and I think the other thing you have to do, and this is my, once again, personal opinion, is you also have to give them a variety of things to try and let them find something that they cling or find on, or, end up liking. I think sometimes when you grow up, like, here's a perfect example. Like we grew up, or my wife grew up as a softball person. Like she did softball for like competitively all year long, like the whole 9 yards. But, you put Quentin in baseball and it was, we did T-ball, we did baseball, and it just didn't turn into his thing. Like he just was not, but we did basketball. He's doing track. Like I'm a huge proponent of like, don't nail your kid in a box. Yeah. Don't, because like most of the professional athletes, I think of one that is just like a phenom like Christian McCaffrey. He's like, well, I did everything. I wanted to do everything. And I think there's two things. There's forcing your kids to get outside their comfort zone. You know what I mean? Try something new. Like we're doing that this semester, like Quentin's doing track because there's no basketball for him right now, but it's also good to learn how to run fast, jump high, like do all those things that you're not going to get in a basketball. Yeah. But, it also fosters and forces some growth. You know what I mean? If you only do the same thing over and over again, you're only going to get good at that one same thing. And I think sometimes as parents, we allow ourselves to get pigeonholed, one, into a specific thing that doesn't foster as much growth for our kids, and two, we kind of forget that they're still kids. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I always get I have a skewed version of this because I see a lot of athletes at my age that are doing what they do because they're good at it, not because they love to do it. Mm-hmm. So there's those things too. But I mean, like, that's the thing is you can't force it, but sometimes forcing a short period of growth, you know what I mean? Like, let's try this and see how it goes. Like, let's try it for, 6 to 8 weeks, try a new sport, see how you like it, learn some new skills. And if it's not your thing, cool. But at least we threw our ring in our hat in the ring and tried something new.
Yeah. That could be a whole nother episode of sports specialization in kids. Like I had such a long conversation with this with a couple of people when we were in Hawaii. Just because like things have changed. Excuse me. Things have changed since I was a kid, right? And like, while there was some sports specialization happening at a young age, I think that has just like, to the nth degree, grown and become even more, popular. And, I think my sister felt some of this in like, they have kind of their family sport that's like what they are most interested in and what the kids have, kind of determined as what is most interesting and motivating to them and like fosters their interests. But, I remember when they encouraged their oldest to, try baseball. And so he did, and it was good, but now he's going up against kids who have essentially specialized in baseball since they were 4 or 5 years old.
Sure.
Right. And he's stepping into it for the very first time as a, 9-10-year-old. And, vice versa happens with kiddos, coming out for the middle school basketball team who have never, touched a basketball before. And that's something that, he's been doing since he was 3. Right. So it goes both ways, but it's almost like, if you want your kids to be successful in a particular sport, it's almost like you can't necessarily do it all at that level. And it's almost like that level is what's required to compete in some sense. And so I don't know, we got into lots of discussions about that because like there's so much evidence, so much research, so much backing not having kids specialize in sports, in terms of athletic development, in terms of injury reduction, and like so many things like to back not specializing for kids. But also it's like, how do you stay true to that while also setting your kid up to be a successful competitor in their, in the sports that they are interested in. So anyways, so much to unpack there. Like I said, that's an episode for another day, but it is a very interesting topic, I think.
Yeah,
overall.
for sure.
Do you want to go to the sauna and wrap this up?
Sure.
Welcome, everyone. It's time to head to sauna. Let's dive in.
Let's go. All right. Takeaways for today. I think my biggest one was your point of like, yeah, there are ways that we can encourage family movement, bring the family together, make it a fun activity, follow their interests, encourage new things, like all of those things. But I think the greater example of it all is it starts with you, and leading by example is like the only way to have, you know, true buy-in when you're asking them to do something that, you know, you are also following through on for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's one of my biggest thing is like you're going to have to, technology is going to become an obstacle at some point, and you're going to have to brainstorm and structure some for yourself and for kids, because we're just so sedentary. And I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but everything is just so convenient for us. We don't really have, like, we don't even have to go to the grocery store anymore. Like, to walk around a grocery store is like, So the ability to map out and put some goals together for a family, where you're leading and doing everything, or at least joining in the activity, is only going to promote a better relationship with physical activity for your kids and yourself. But like, set that precedent that this is something we should do or build into our lifestyle.
100%. Love that. Love that. Do you have trivia for me?
I do. And it is going to be trivia about the human body and some fun facts as far as growth and development, since one person here, not me, is growing a human at the current moment.
Let's go.
Are you ready? So messages from the human brain travel nerves up to how many miles an hour in order to give us feedback? Like, how fast do your neurons transmit everything that's going on?
Is this in miles per hour?
Yep.
300.
Ooh, so close. 200 miles an hour.
Oh, man.
200. That's gross. Okay. This is a comparison. There are more bacteria in your mouth than there are what in the world?
Humans in the world.
Yep. There's more bacteria in your mouth than there are human beings across the world.
Disgusting.
So next time you go to kiss someone, there you go.
We're just doubling the amount of bacteria.
The human skeleton renews itself after how many years?
Oh. Every 3 years.
10 years. Every 10 years, our skeleton is brand new.
Didn't know what the cell turnover rate was for our skeleton.
There's some very interesting ones here. What two parts of your body never stop growing throughout your life?
Ears and nose.
Beautiful. You knew that. I didn't know that. That's crazy.
That. Yes.
Here's a fun one. Are you ready for this?
Why old people have really big ears?
Halfway there. Great. Awesome. The same skin cells that make up your human mouth also make up this part of your anatomy. Like the same skin cells that make up the mouth are the same skin cells that make up. Any ideas?
I have a few. Your like intestines?
No.
Intestinal.
You want a hint?
Sure.
It's going to be it's different, or like it's some. How do I put that? I don't know why I care. This question would not apply to me. It would apply to you.
My bits, my downstairs bits.
Yes,
I had a feeling, but I was like,
human vagina has the same type of skin cells that the mouth does. Yeah, interesting.
I have some things I could say about that, but I will refrain.
The lining of the stomach is replaced how many days to prevent it from digesting itself? So the lining of your stomach has to replace itself, otherwise it will like literally digest itself. So it creates a new lining how often?
Every 6 days.
4 to 5 days. Super close. 2 more. Adult human small intestines is about how long?
Adult human small intestine. It's like miles long, isn't it? Or I'm thinking about blood vessels.
Blood vessels. Yeah, we don't have miles of intestines. That would be.
It's long. It's very long. Is it in feet or yards?
Feet.
15 feet.
It is 18 to 23 feet long.
I was close.
Which is about 4 times as long as a human is tall.
I almost said 20 feet, and then I backed it down to 15, and 20 would have been right in the sweet spot.
It would have. Last one. A human sneeze can travel how fast in miles per hour?
Ew. 60.
100 miles an hour.
It's like a hurricane. Yeah. I remember
100
that
miles an hour.
The old C word days. They were talking about how fast the sneeze would travel, and it's like the power of a hurricane force sneezes.
So there you go. There's your trivia for the day.
Nice. Well, thank you guys for bearing with me through my very sleepy podcast. Maybe I'll take a nap today. I'll keep you guys posted. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks for listening.